This is the regular board meeting of November 2nd, 2023. It is now 4:07. We will begin roll call.
President Chavez,
Present.
Vice President Cortese,
Here.
Clerk Doe,
Here.
Member Data,
Here.
Member Lay.
Are there any are there any members of the public who would like to provide public comment to the board on a closed session agenda item?
We have no in-person, nor do we have online public comment.
There are no members of the audience. We will now recess to closed session. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please be seated. Okay. Welcome to the regular board meeting of November 2nd, 2023. Members of the public, please submit your public comment as follows. Public comment may be made in person in the boardroom by filling out a public speaker request form that looks like this, and it's located at the entrance of the meeting room. You may raise your virtual hand in Zoom to request to speak and offer comment in real time. You may also submit your public comment online by accessing the link to the agenda located on the district's homepage at www.esuhsd.org. Please reference the agenda item number in your written comments and limit your written comments to no more than 1,000 characters in length. Public comments submitted online will be read into the record. Please note, we ask that no specific names of staff members, students, or community members are noted in your specific comment. All regular and special meetings of the Board of Trustees and board study sessions are streamed live on meeting nights and are also available for viewing the day after the meeting by accessing the district's YouTube channel listed on the district's webpage at www.esuhsd.org under the quick link section. The board is not able to respond to items that are not on the agenda or any personnel issues. Your comment will be read into the record and will be directed to the superintendent and/or the appropriate staff member for response. Interpretation of this meeting in Spanish and Vietnamese can be heard by accessing the link and following instructions shown on the agenda or the district's website. All right, section 5, adoption of the agenda. Do we have any items to be removed from the agenda or considered carried to another board meeting? We do? Okay. Which ones?
Administration is requesting that 8.02 be moved to a future meeting.
Okay, that's 8.0.
For tonight, move 12.02 into that space after 8:01.
Okay. 0.02. Into 8.02 section, noted. Okay, anything else? Any other board member? No? Okay, that's section 5. Section 6, recognitions or no recognitions. Section 7, we have our student governing board representative, Emily. Emily, do you have any report?
So in our last meeting, our Monday student governing board meeting, we went over the survey responses from last year's input form. Looking over 100 responses, we discussed the most prevalent issues we saw, ranging from bathroom cleanliness, technology accessibility, school safety, and bullying. We formed a task force to continue monitoring issues from last year, as well as making a new form to focus on the new school year's projects. We also spent time with our student governing board to discuss passion projects we want to implement this year at our individual schools.
So thank you for that. We are now in section 8.01. Superintendent or board may request items to be acted out of order. So aside from what has already been noted, is there anything else?
No, just moving 1202 to the following item.
Anything else, colleagues? No? Okay, great. So now we're gonna be doing 12.02. So that is presentation regarding updates on charter school renewals.
So I'd like to welcome to East Side, our good friend from Sacramento is joining us today and is going to lead us through just this presentation. Since it's been a while since we've had our partners in the charter school area have to petition for renewal, given the extension that schools were given due to coronavirus. And so just for information only, we're going to spend some time to just look over and remind ourselves as a district and authorizing agency, just what that process is. And so we'll get into a mind meld, and as you advance through slides, I'll try to get it right. Okay.
Hello, good evening. Hi,
Welcome.
good evening, trustees. Thank you, Superintendent Vanderzee. My name is Bill Schutz. I'm an attorney with Deanna Oliver Kelly. It's nice to meet you all and be here in person. I've been working with authorizers on charter matters for 20 years. Things have been, as mentioned, a little quieter the past 3 years or so because the state basically put a hold on renewals. And we've had some reform legislation around the area of new charters as well. So things have been a little bit on hold. And given that it's been a few years since we've had renewals before you, administration asked me to be here to come this evening and kind of give a little refresher on the renewal process. And it did change. It is a relatively new process that we're still working with. We had a reform legislation under AB 1505 that was adopted in 2020. And that legislation basically reformed a lot of the processes that we have today, including the renewal process that I'm going to talk about tonight. So Glenn, if you could, our superintendent, if you could go to the next slide on automatic renewal extension. So we had these changes with the law, but then all of a sudden we had a pandemic and it kind of put a wrinkle in things. And so the legislature, in order to, not just because of the pandemic, but because the dashboard was suspended, which is what we're basing a lot of renewals on, the state legislature basically granted an automatic 2-year extension to all charters that fell within this time period. And that was basically to catch up. So we didn't have dashboard for a while, so this would allow the dashboard to come back online and then have a couple years of data before we are going into a renewal. Then this last legislative session, the governor put through in the omnibus trailer bill again an additional 1-year extension. So all of the charters that are under your authorization were given 3 years extension. And this was automatic. It was by operation of statute. There was nothing we needed to do, you need to do as a board or a district. So really, what does that mean to you? The next slide here shows you a timeline of when you're going to start seeing the renewals starting to come back through the pipeline. So in end of 2025, you're going to have 3 of your charters that are their current term will expire then. So you're going to be seeing renewal petitions submitted for them. And then in 5 in 2026, since I have a note here, a caveat here on this includes 1 State Board of Education authorized charter school. So as part of the reform legislation that came into play with AB 1505, as the state basically got out of the authorizing business. So as part of that, they're slowly phasing out, authorizing the ones that they've authorized. So the way the law works now, when a charter that's authorized by the state is up for renewal, it's going to come back to the district where basically it's located. So you have 1 charter that falls into that category. So you're going to be seeing that along with that list of 4. And I'll talk a little bit later about what it means if it were not renewed and how that plays out when I talk about appeals towards the end. And
And
then we got one. in-
Before we move on, to be clear, these are all east side charter schools, right? Within our district. That-
These
the
are
numbers.
all East Side Union High School District authorized charters, yeah, except the one that's state board that will be coming to you for renewal. Right, next slide, please. So just a reminder, because the timing of the process may have changed since you dealt with it last. We used to have a 30-day public hearing and a 60-day action, unless that 60 days was extended by 30 days. Well, as part of the reform under AB 1505, we now have public hearing within 60 days of submission, and then 90 days for action, unless extended up to 120 days by mutual agreement. And then the law now requires staff's recommendation or any findings related to that renewal petition review to be posted on your website, minimum of 15 days before that action board meeting. And this is a process, we're starting with it submitted, but staff is going to be reviewing it, legal is going to be reviewing it for legal compliance. And we'll talk a second about what they're going to be looking at, we're going to be looking at as part of that scope of review. So it is still a kind of a quick timeline. And then, so as far as that scope of review, we're looking at basically 3 main buckets, but some extra stuff as well. So 47605 is the kind of bedrock ed code section. We look at it for new petitions, and it requires certain things to be included in a petition so that it's legally compliant. And one of those things is, in my next slide, I'll talk about what those are, but that's one of the buckets we're looking at. And then also looking at whether that charter is still demonstrably likely to continue to successfully implement its program, right? Its governance, its operations, is a fiscal, all those components. So this is a multifaceted review. It's not just, ed services, it's business, it's legal, potentially facilities and HR, all looking at this renewal together. It's a team effort. And then is the charter serving all students who wish to attend is another area that we're looking at. And then is the charter is the charter school compliant with its charter? The terms of this charter, has it been historically? Is it compliant with the legal requirements that it has to follow? So we're kind of looking at those all together, and then that kind of all goes into the recommendation that ultimately comes before you. Next slide, please. So again, talking about that first bucket, the criterion and standards under 47605. Charters have to be, obviously the law changes, right? I mean, it's been now for some of these that are coming before you, maybe 7, 8 years before they've been revised. Now you have MOUs with them as well, so there's been some changes and updates, but there's changes in law, obviously, during that period. I mean, there's just this last legislative session, some changes in the law applicable to charter schools. So each charter school has to update its charter to reflect any changes in law since it was either last renewed or first approved. And then also there are 15 required elements that have to be described in the petition. It's like the education program, the governance, employee qualifications, safe health and safety, all those things. And the charter has to have a reasonably comprehensive description of what's needed in those. And what is in that description may have changed since they were last renewed or approved. So we're looking at that as part of our review. And those are based on like a matrix that we're looking and reviewing. And then also, what is your budgetary plan, your operational plan for the next however many years, depending on what your renewal term is going to be? What's your governance? Looking at the bylaws of the nonprofit that's operating. All those pieces we're looking at as part of review. So that's under this bucket of 47605 criterion. The other big bucket is around academic performance. And this changed with the revisions to AB 1505 so that we're looking at the dashboard the past 2 years, and that's why we had that extension I mentioned earlier, is because we didn't have one. So the law says you shall consider the charter school's performance on the state and local indicators on the dashboard. And based on that dashboard data, charters are either classified as high, middle, or low performing tier, category or tier. And that's determined by the dashboard matrix. And I'll go through each of those in a second. We also may be looking at what's called verified data. If in certain circumstances, if middle performing, we'll say, is going to be a denial based on they get almost a second take to provide additional data to support that they are making improvements. For low performing, it's similar. If it's going to come into play as part of the actual review for them to prove up and for you to make the additional findings you need to make to approve them. I know that's a lot, but we'll cover it in a little bit more in a second. Then we have this alternative category called dashboard alternative school status charter schools. And I think it almost speaks for itself. It's different than the dashboard, and it's schools. I mean, one of your non-charter schools can be a dashboard equivalent. I think that you have one. But for those, it's you're looking at the dashboard, but also these alternative metrics that are applicable to the charter, and it's based on agreement and what's decided between the authorizer and the charter school. So we'll talk about the exception to that a little more in a second too. So you have these, I mentioned the three academic performance categories, and depending on which one a charter falls in will dictate how many years their renewal term will be. Where prior to AB 1505 changes, renewal terms were 5 years. Now, for high performing, it's 5 to 7. Middle, it's 5, and for low performing, it's 2. Exception here again is the dashboard alternatives. Now these are if we're in the charter school context, it's a charter school that's serving high-risk students, and meaning they must have an unduplicated count of at least 70% of the school's total enrollment. And so obviously they're uphill battle trying to, have even low on the dashboard at times because of the student population they serve. So they have a special category where they, when we're reviewing those, they're for a 5-year term when they're renewed, dashboard alternative schools. Okay, so high performing. This is basically a charter that's doing really well. 2 highest performance levels in the state indicators, if you're familiar with the colors at all. They scored green or blue school-wide on all statewide indicators. And for high performing, it's the presumption is renewal, yes. But if they don't score those colors, there's still ways for them to prove up that they are high performing. And they still are, doesn't mean they're still not accountable for the other parts, the other buckets we were talking about. As well, I have a slide in a minute on 47605E. There is another ground that any charter can be denied renewal for, regardless of your performance level. And that's dealing with governance and not meeting the needs of all students who wish to attend. So I'll have a slide on that in a second. So middle tier is the one that most charters will fall under. Unlike, we're going to see low performing in a minute. This one, it's basically the presumption, the default is approval, unless you as the board make these findings of fact to deny, including that the charter has failed to meet or make sufficient progress toward meeting standards that provide a benefit to the school students. And I mean, pretty high standard closure of this charter is in the best interest of students. And so essentially it's approval unless you make these additional findings to deny. Now with low performing, the next slide, it's the opposite. The default is denial unless you make additional findings needed in order necessary to approve. And in looking at what those additional findings are, has a charter school taking meaningful steps to address the underlying cause or causes of that low performance? And those steps are reflected or will be reflected in a written plan adopted by the charter school's governing body. And that there's clear and convincing evidence showing either of the following. So the charter school achieved measurable increases in academic achievement as defined by at least 1 year's progress of each year of school or strong post-secondary outcomes. And these last two, we're looking at what I referenced earlier, the verified data, in order to support those findings that those are made. And the state verified data, just briefly, is data that's derived from nationally recognized, valid, peer-reviewed, and reliable sources that are externally produced. And it, some examples, the state has posted a list of what is considered verified data. Some of the examples could be including CAST, which you're familiar with, the state testing on EL, English language arts, literacy, and mathematics. And at the post-secondary indicators, it may be California State University Enrollment Dashboard, Student Origin, CDE, DataQuest, college going. So there's a list, and the charter school will be pulling from those to support that, hey, we've proved up and met that standard. So initial, some additional renewal considerations. The law says you authorizer need to make a determination, is the charter school serving all students who wish to attend? And the evidence that they call out for the authorizer to look at is aggregate data that the California Department of Ed provides about enrollment patterns at the charter school, and then any other information that comes from CDE. But then also the law allows any parent to file a complaint and against the charter school, but it's actually given to the authorizer where they're complaining that the charter school failed to comply with suspension expulsion process or otherwise has voluntarily removed a student from a charter school for any reason. So if any of those complaints come through that the district receives, we have to consider that as part of that review. And are you actually meeting that? Because there's a component of a lot of this legislation, and it was about equity of access and ensuring that all students have a right to access. And one of the things that was set up in as part of the reform was you can't just exit a student from a school if they're not doing well. You have to provide due process, a lot of those things. Same with admission. You can't just deny admission for arbitrary reasons. It has to be, within the confines of what law allows. So some of those things are what we're looking at as far as making a determination, is the charter meeting the need, serving all students who wish to attend. So I mentioned earlier a reference to this code section about an additional ground that was added by 1505 as a basis to deny a renewal petition. And this applies regardless of that tier level. It could be a high performance, and this still could apply. So it's looking at, is the charter school demonstrably unlikely to successfully implement its program? And that's a mouthful, right? Set forth in the petition due to substantial fiscal or governance factors, and or is not serving all pupils who wish to attend. So if we have facts or findings that support that, it's not an automatic we're jumping to a renewal. The charter has to be given notice and an opportunity to cure that. And then additional findings will be needed to be made by the board in order to deny on this ground. And that's that corrective action proposed by the charter has been unsuccessful, or violations are basically so severe and pervasive that no matter what they try to do, they're not going to be able to address this. So it's kind of some extreme situations, but you can understand why the legislature may have wanted to put this in place so that we're ensuring that charter schools are compliant and admitting all students who wish to attend. Okay, so the last slide I have for you is just a very quick one on the appeal process. And this only comes into play should a renewal be denied. And remember in the beginning, I said the state's gotten out of the business of authorizing charters. Well, that's the same on the appeal level. It used to go up to the state and there's a potential that the state board could approve it. And that charter would become the CDE's, California Department of Ed charter. Well, because of those changes in legislation, once appeals go up to the state, it's a different ballgame. So this is just a very quick, there's like 10 slides to this really process based on what that code provides. But I did want to highlight that on that State Board of Education authorized charter that's going to come to you for renewal. If it were denied, in that case, they could go to it wouldn't go to the county. It would go straight back to the State Board of Education. And instead of the State Board of Education potentially becoming the authorizer, if the state board grants renewal, then the state board shall designate in consultation with the charter school, not with anybody else, either the district board or the county board of education as that chartering entity. So in the pre-1505 days, if a charter went up to the state board on appeal, they would sometimes ask the denying district or county board below, would you take over oversight functions? But there was no obligation to do so. Well, that could be the case now. We have a limited number throughout the state, but you do have one in your ballpark. So I just want to include that kind of caveat to this slide, so you're aware of it, down the road should, and we will explore those things more further. And that would only be if it is a denial recommendation, and we're far from that. Yes.
I'm not sure I'm fully tracking this. So you're saying that appeals, so in the old days, the appeals, if a charter was denied here, they could appeal to the county board? Now is that for new petitions or existing?
For renewals as well.
Renewals as
And they
well.
still can. And so it's an appeal to the County Board of Education first.
Okay,
But the difference now, and it's there's a lot more details than what's on this slide. But if that county board gets a petition and there's material changes, they made a lot of changes that are substantive, they can't review it and they send it back to the district for reconsideration. But if there are no material changes once on this county board level, they can review it and potentially become the authorizer if they approve it. If they were to deny it, the county board were to deny it and it went to the state's not going to ultimately doesn't have the possibility of becoming the authorizer anymore. They would look at a similar standard and what's referred to here as an abusive discretion to see, hey, did the procedures and all those things not get followed by the county board and the district below? And if it did, then we're gonna, basically approve it and it's back on you guys. There's a lawsuit that was filed, Napa Valley Unified, against the State Board of Education because they basically ignored that abusive discretion standard. And they were successful with the CSBA Legal Alliance in challenging that. And since then, the state legislature has clearly defined what abusive discretion is. It's a very deferential standard. It's the most deferential standard. So does that answer your question about? Okay. So that is it for my slides. I mean, if there are any questions, I know this was kind of like a crash course and very, very brief 101 refresher on renewals. But again, I think the purpose was to kind of give you an idea of what's coming down the road and a little bit idea of what the process, and of course, once those renewal petitions come in, we'll be refreshing you more about what that process is and everything too.
thank you. I do have a couple of questions. So on the slide, I think it's number 11, maybe about I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. So the orientation of this low tier is that we do not renew. It's not like it's a low tier equals a 2-year renewal. It's oriented toward no non-renewal unless they're taking meaningful steps, and there is clear convincing evidence that they've achieved measurable increases in academic achievement or strong post-secondary outcomes. That I'm confused about that, the second "and" there, because those two things, I mean, taking meaningful steps, we can look at somebody's plan and assess whether we think it's a viable plan or not, right? But those two bullet points under number 2 seem like they are tied to future events. Right? So how do you,
Sure. Well, they're looking at, I mean, it's going beyond the dashboard, because basically the low tier designation is based on how they did on the dashboard. So this is looking at, well, we're still making improvements. And here's the data to support that. And it's through this verified data, other sources beyond the dashboard that they're showing that. And that's something they're going to need to demonstrate in their renewal petition in order, and then staff is going to be reviewing that to make sure to review that and say, yeah, those are valid measures of improvement based on verified data. And then ultimately, if it is, that's a recommendation. Yeah, it looks like they're meeting it. And then that would give you the ability to make, as a board, to make those findings that are necessary to approve.
okay, so this is still historic data, but maybe it's trending because maybe we haven't looked at this charter for 5 to 7 years. So you're saying that if it's trending toward, well, the last year they've had a lot of post-secondary success, or, you know, clearly they're moving in the right direction on academics, which I would also kind of think is reflected in the dashboard, but
Yeah,
Right.
the dashboard, has its different intricacies, and sometimes that's why they're given this second basically take.
okay.
But I think what's key is the charter has to show what are we going to be doing to make improvements, and that's really the first threshold here. And having a written plan for doing that. And it was a real interest of the legislature in developing this tier and this low, because there have been a lot of underserved students as a result of poor performance. So it's a part of it about accountability and ensuring that they are doing what they said they're going to do in their charter and their petition. But it is, if they are approved, it's a 2-year term, which means it's a quick ability to see, are you really making those improvements you said you were going to do in your plan?
Right, thank you. I have one more question. And this is just a clarifying question. It's not a question to show any intent of anything, but my understanding is that is it SB 1505?
AB 1505.
AB 1505, okay. Is that the legislation that included language that allowed districts to deny new petitions based on fiscal,
Yeah.
the fiscal health of the district?
It's the same. It added grounds, 2 additional grounds to deny or that a board can consider for new petitions. Yes.
Those are for new petitions only. Okay,
Yeah, so that fiscal reason doesn't come into play for renewals unless there is a material revision request that actually you can look at some of those parts, but.
thank you.
I really appreciate this briefing. I've been aware that there was a wide-ranging review at the state level to reset the framework around charters and districts and how we renew or approve renewals. And this is my first understanding of what is emerging, what has emerged, and it's pretty significant. And thank you. for this
Good.
briefing.
Bye, glad it was helpful.
Two questions. One's the practical.
Which state board of education authorized charter? As far as my understanding is KIB Navigate is a state board of education authorized charter that's, anyways, that's the one I'm understanding, yeah.
honestly speaking, not about.
The Maya comments. Yeah.
Maya, yeah, comments, yeah, Maya.
Yeah. And it was a good case. It turned out the way we thought it should be, that defining abusive discretion and what that meant, and that the state board can't just ignore the law, because it was really would have turned reform on its head. And what's the purpose of having this then? So. And then the legislature clarified it more of defining what that means, and it's not what that board decided to do. So, and the CSBA Legal Alliance was behind and supporting that. Our firm was representing the California School Board Association, the Education Legal Alliance. They bring actions to on behalf of the benefit of school districts throughout the state. Of those are of statewide impact, and so they were kind of a friend of the court and involved in that local lawsuit. So.
Hi, Bill. Thank you for the presentation.
Yeah.
I have a two question here. Can you go back to page 13, please? In page 13, I saw that we have charter school is demonstrably unlikely to successfully implement the program set forth in the petition due to is not serving all purpose who wish to attend. My question here is, I know that some of the charter school has some lottery ticket, and because they have enough capacity to support the student. So in that situation, what are we going to do in terms of will we renew, deny basis? Because I overheard, quite few, parents, if they want to attend, but if they couldn't make it in the, in the lottery ticket, then, they have to find other way. Could you help me understand this?
Yeah, that sounds like, so the law says you have to admit all students who wish to attend. And if you reach capacity, then you're supposed to implement a lottery or a random drawing. And there's certain preference categories that they may designate in there, maybe for siblings or existing students. And so they implement that lottery, and assuming it's fair and the procedure is compliant with the steps, then, that's a legal way to do
Yes.
things. This is more talking about where we're having, and it's kind of looking back at the data that we had about what are enrollment patterns. Unfortunately, the state CDE data is not particularly helpful, but there are other sources that can be looked at. They did disproportionately not enrolling certain students that aren't reflective of the area, or special needs students. There's different things that can be looked at to determine whether or not they really are. And one of the factors that the state asks is these complaint forms. Are you getting any of these where your parents or others are complaining that a student is being denied admission or as part of the admission process, or they're being exited from the program, not in compliance with due process and what the charter states. So it's a bigger, it's a bigger discussion, but the heart of it is really that equity and access piece.
I see.
And again, if those facts exist, the charter has to be given at least 30 days notice and an opportunity to cure that, and showing what they're going to be doing to address that before you can even deny on this basis. But I put it in here because it's a new ground that didn't exist before AB 1505. Even though, the charter, we were looking at denials based on them having governance or fiscal mismanagement issues. That's still been there and is there. But now we have this cure period. If you're having some substantial fiscal or governance factors, which, with charter school law, the legislature pushes through things and have words and, understand the full meaning of them. So we're still working through the process on renewal, but it's, we'll cross that bridge and advise you accordingly if some of these circumstances arise with any of them. So.
I have a second question. So if Eastside deny one of the new charter school and the charter school will apply to the county, then let's say county approve it. So that charter will belong to the county, not belong to Eastside anymore, but we have to oversee particular fiscal, am I correct?
If, are you talking in the new charter
Yes.
context? If they appealed to the county and the county board approved it, it becomes the county's charter under their oversight. So you wouldn't have any oversight
relation.
functions related to them.
Oh, I see.
May have some other things, but not oversight.
Right. Thanks a lot for your clarification.
Sure.
That's all I have.
The other thing you refer, I'm sorry. The other thing you're referring to.
Do you want to put your mic on?
Thank you. But the other thing that you're referring to potentially like leases, what else thing that might be fit under the category of other?
You're saying in her context?
Yes.
Could charter facilities obligations depending on where they're located and if they meet the criterion.
Again, not to express my intention, just a clarification based
Yeah.
on what she's asking. In the case of renewal, does that apply in a similar manner?
Right. So it's the county, if the district denies it potentially, and it goes to this county, the county could authorize it and become the authorizer. And it would be that similar context. The appeal process is for renewal and new petition is similar in that vein. We just have different grounds to deny a renewal versus a new petition that comes before you.
Thank you. That's all I have.
I have a few questions. Thank you. This is super comprehensive. I've never seen a presentation like this. I'm really appreciating it. So I just want to like check my understanding. So sounds like there's 3 levels of approval. One is like 5 to 7 years and then 5 years and then 2,
Yes.
that right? And everybody will fall under a category. The third one though, with the 2 years must meet one of the 2 bullet points under the low performance in order to be able to get those 2 years though, right? It's not automatic just like the others necessarily.
Right. So the high performing is the most automatic.
Got it.
And then middle, still can be denied. But it has additional findings have to be made in order to deny it.
That's the last part that which
Mm.
applies to all of them, right?
Well,
All
the
the
middle
categories.
anyways. If you go to the 2 more slides, it talks about what the middle category is. That, the
Oh, unless-
presumption, it's not as strong a presumption as high performing, but essentially it's approval unless the district makes these findings in order to deny it.
Yeah,
And then low performing, it's a flop of that. It's deny unless you make findings needed to approve.
got it. Okay. And this is not like parts of it are new, but this has been like the structure.
These
These 3
tiers and,
tiers, yeah.
scope of review around what you're looking at and the renewal term, that's all new. I mean, we were before these tiers are still looking at the dashboard and other measures. But it was clear that when AB 1505 came in, they set up the 3 tiers tied to specific criterion and renewal terms. So that's new with the legislation that's been, we've had this time warp gap because of the pandemic, but that was July of 2020 that was signed into law.
Got it.
It really only got 1 year of really use, and then we had the extensions, automatic renewal extensions, so it hasn't really been used since then until coming up.
That's helpful. And I imagine that this will be tricky because there was an SBAC like being proctored necessarily, right? For a number, at least a year.
What are
Right?
you
During the
asking?
pandemic. SBAC that
Oh.
is part of like the academic performance that shows up on the state dashboard.
Right, so the newest dashboard will be coming out in mid-December. And so there'll be 2 years of dashboard, which is what we're
Data.
looking at for these. is the past 2 years of the dashboard is what we're looking at for determining their performance category.
So there'll be data, there'll be the 2 years previously for us to be able to see where they land in any of these, they're not bucket tiers.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
And you won't have to, this is going to be reviewed by staff in
Yeah.
detail and, provided to you and information that you can understand. I mean, I'm not an educator. I'm not an analyst of education data. So we rely on a team effort of staff and just same way I'm not a budget person. So we have budget looking at things too. So
Yeah, no, this is super helpful. Thank you. Really appreciate it. And thank you for
well,
making this.
appreciate the
account.
questions. Thanks so much. Good to
Great.
see you.
Have a good night. Okay, so that was 12.02 in section 8. There's nothing under section 9. So let's go to section 10. All right, so members of the public may address the board on any subject not on today's agenda. However, provisions of the Brown Act preclude any action. As an unagendized item, no response is required from the board or district staff, and no action can be taken. However, the board may instruct the superintendent to agendize the item for a future meeting. Any person may address the board on any item on the meeting agenda. Persons wishing to address the board may participate and comment as follows. In-person public comment may be made in person in the meeting room by filling out one of these speaker request forms that can be found in the room's entrance. When your name is called, please come to the podium, state your name for the record. You may also raise your virtual hand in Zoom to request to speak and offer comment in real time. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Persons may also fill out a speaker request form via online submission. Comments should be limited to no more than 1,000 characters in length. Please reference in your submission the agenda item number for your comment. Your comments will be read out loud as part of the public meeting. And again, I want to remind us to please, let's not say any specific names. Okay, so with that, we'll start with people that are here. And then we'll see if there's any online public comment. So let's start with Charles Garrido. Charles Garrido, are you here? Charles Garrido is not here, so I'll set this one aside in case I see somebody else come in. We have Feng Nguyen. Do we have Feng Nguyen here? Feng Nguyen? Please come to the podium if I say your name. Feng Nguyen, you will have 2 minutes. Please start with stating your name for the record.
Tôi tên là Diệu Hòa, Phật tử của chùa Phước Đức. Thì trong buổi họp ngày 21 tháng 10 năm 23 của Ban Tổ chức Hậu duệ Việt Nam Cộng Hòa và Cảnh sát Quốc gia, cùng với cô hiệu trưởng Yevavuna tự ý mở cuộc họp báo mà không hề gửi email hay thư mời cho thầy Thích Lệ Tịnh cả. Vậy xin hỏi mục đích của cô hiệu trưởng và nhóm Hậu duệ Việt Nam Cộng Hòa và Cảnh sát Quốc gia đang dự tính điều gì mà hãm hại nhắm vào thầy Thích Lệ Tịnh và sách động nhóm Facebook của đuôi vượn đòi biểu tình tẩy chay chùa Phước Đức và trả vé lại cho show gây quỹ từ thiện ngày 12 tháng 11 năm 2023 của chùa. Trong khi nhóm Hương Sen kết hợp với trường Yevavuna gây quỹ cho học sinh cũng trùng vào ngày 12 tháng 11 năm 23. Xin cảm ơn.
Good evening. I'm Nguyệt, coordinator of family engagement. I would like to be your translator tonight. My name is Yu Hua. I am a Buddhist member of the Phước Đức Temple. In the meeting on October 21st, 23, the organization committee organized a group of former police officers belong to the national Vietnam with the principal at Yebuberna. They had a press conference, but they did not email or send invitation to the Buddhist monk Thích Lệ Tịnh. So the question is, what is the purpose of the principal and the Vietnamese nationalist and the former police officers that belong to the national Vietnamese group? What did they want to do? And they want to address the Buddhist monk Thích Lệ Tịnh and want to boycott the fundraising for the temple on November 12, 23. At the same time, Yebuberna also have a fundraising for their school on November 12, 23. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speakers, I'm gonna say 3 at a time so that you know who's coming next, okay? So next we have Jenny Nguyen, and then New Di Nguyen, and then Hong Then Lee. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing. So the next person is Jenny Nguyen.
Dear board members, my name is Jenny Huynh. On October 21st, 2023, your employee principal of Yerba Buena High School organized a public hearing in San Jose to discuss an issue related to the school. She appeared military together with other members of the troop. The principal and her military unit launched a vicious attack campaign against our temple, and the Venerable Thích Lệ Tịnh accusation that our temple and the Venerable are communist agent as far baseless, libelous, causing the public anger and hatred. This false accusation must stop. Here are some pictures of the principal libelous action, and we also learned that more to come in the next few weeks. These actions of inciting public anger are dangerous and libelous. Your responsibility to take appropriate action to stop it. We will take the action, legal action, to hold this board respond by Monday, November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. New Di Nguyen.
Kính thưa quý vị, tôi là một Phật tử của chùa Phước Đức, pháp danh là Diệu Tịnh. Vừa qua tôi có tham dự cuộc họp báo ngày 21 tháng 10, 2023 của một nhóm người được gọi là hậu duệ của quân lực Việt Nam Cộng Hòa, đứng ra tổ chức với nội dung thực hư chùa Phước Đức, San Jose, thuê mướn gây quỹ từ thiện bị cancel. Tôi đã từng được biết cô hiệu trưởng Yerba Buena High School là một người tốt, chăm lo cho học sinh và rất tốt với cộng đồng. Nhưng qua cuộc họp tôi nhận thấy rằng cô hiệu trưởng đã vượt qua giới hạn của học đường, trực tiếp mặc đồ quân nhân cùng đứng chung với nhóm tự xưng là hậu duệ của Việt Nam Cộng Hòa và Cảnh sát quốc gia làm lớn chuyện mở cuộc họp báo. Vậy cô hiệu trưởng là chung hội với nhóm này và cố tình dàn cảnh để vu khống thầy Thích Lệ Tịnh. Và tại sao trước cuộc họp báo 2 ngày tức 19 tháng 10 2023 có Facebook tên Đuôi Vượng lên livestream vu khống thầy Thích Lệ Tịnh trụ trì chùa Phước Đức là sư quốc danh và kêu gọi biểu tình tẩy chay. Vụ việc này đã làm mất lòng tin Phật tử của chùa Phước Đức. Vì vậy tôi yêu cầu ông Tổng Giám đốc học khu giải quyết nhanh chóng sự kiện này để chúng tôi không còn hoang mang, lo lắng và sợ hãi nữa. Trân trọng, Phật tử Diệu Tịnh. Cảm ơn. Thank you.
Do you want to stay here while she interprets for you? Want to make sure we hear it in English too. Thank you.
My name is Yu Tịnh. I am a Buddhist member of the Phước Đức Temple. On October 21st, there was a press conference from a group that was called the Former Nationalist Vietnamese. They organized with the content, the reality of Buddhist Temple Phước Đức, and they wanted to cancel the fundraising event. I know the principal at Yaburana. She's a good person. She takes care of her students and the community. But through the press conference, I realized that she has crossed her boundary and she sided with the former soldiers of the nationalist Vietnamese and organized the press conference. And they attacked the Buddhist monk Thích Lệ Tịnh and also accused him as being a communist. So I would like to request the superintendent and the board to solve the problem as soon as possible so we won't be worried anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, New Thi Nguyen. Oh, wait, that's you. I'm gonna move it from here, sorry. Hong Then Lee. If I mispronounce your name, please let me know. I apologize in advance.
Well, I speak English not very well, so I will speak Vietnamese. Okay. Tôi tên là Hoàng Lê, Phật tử của chùa Phước Đức. Thì tôi có vài câu hỏi cần được giải đáp. Thứ nhất là vậy thử hỏi học khu ESUHSD và cô hiệu trưởng kết hợp với Hội Từ Thiện Hương Sen, chương trình gây quỹ cho năm nay như vậy có bị gọi là tiếp tay cho Cộng sản hay không? Thì tôi có đây là 2 poster của Hội Từ Thiện Hương Sen hát cho chùa Pháp Vương. Là cương vị của cô hiệu trưởng làm như vậy có ảnh hưởng xấu đến hình tượng của trường học khu ESUHSD hay không? Thì có vài lý do. Hội VSA kết hợp Hội Từ Thiện Hương Sen làm trùng ngày November 12 mà xảy ra sự việc lớn lao tới như ngày hôm nay. Đây là 2 poster của chùa Phước Đức. Chương trình Hội VSA của Hội Từ Thiện Hương Sen làm trùng ngày. Trong nhiều năm qua thì VSA chỉ gây quỹ cho học sinh trong nội bộ, không có bất cứ hội đoàn nào bên ngoài. Cộng đồng nhúng tay vào, giá vé chỉ bán 8 đồng, nhưng năm nay cô hiệu trưởng đã kết hợp với nhóm Hương Sen chương trình gây quỹ với giá vé là 30 đồng, 50 đồng và 100 đồng. Hôm họp báo October 21, tại sao cô hiệu trưởng lại mặc quân phục của hầu về như vậy? Cô có phải là một trong những người trong ban tổ chức buổi họp báo? Vậy là vai trò của cô trong ngày họp báo là hiệu trưởng hay là cô trong ban tổ chức của nhóm hậu vệ? Tôi cảm ơn ạ.
Thank you. Interpret for you.
My name is Hoàng Lê. I am a Buddhist member of the Phước Đức Temple. I have some questions. First, did ESUHSD High School District and the principal connect with the Hun Sơn charity to raise fund for this year? Was that called an action to support the communist? I get a poster to show the activities of the Hun Sen charity for the Pháp Vương Temple. Number two, with the position as a principal, did her action have a negative effect on the school and the ESUHSD High School District? Number three, was it because the Vietnamese Student Association connect with the Hun Sen charity and had a fundraising at the same time on November 12 that caused the problem? For many years, the Vietnamese Student Association only fundraised for the students, and they did not work with any others outside organizations. The ticket was only $8, but this year, the principal worked with the Hun Sen group and raised the ticket to $30, $50, $100. At the October 21st press conference, while the principal wore the military uniform, was she a member of the people that organized the press conference? What is her role on that day? Was she the organizer or was she the supporter of the Vietnamese nationalist movement? Thank you.
Thank you. Kim Nguyen?
Dear all the member board, dear all the board member, tôi tên là Diệu.
Oh, closer. Okay.
Sorry. Dear all the board member, tôi tên là Diệu Thảo. Thật là hãnh diện cho một người phụ nữ Việt Nam đầu tiên là cô hiệu trưởng của vùng Bay Area. Cô hiệu trưởng, tuy rằng cô hiệu trưởng đã làm rất nhiều việc tốt, nhưng việc này rất thiên vị vì vẫn là điều không tốt. Book online ngày November 11, deposit đã hoàn tất. Hệ thống xây là để đợi một vài ba hôm, nhưng mãi hơn 3 tuần mới có câu trả lời deny. Dù vô chép ngày November 11 vẫn còn trống. Vậy hỏi hệ thống làm việc của vấn đề gì bí ẩn? Xin cô hiệu trưởng để giải thích lý do việc đối xử không công bằng này. Hay là vì Hội Hương Sen đã nhúng tay kết hợp với VSA đã tổ chức những ngày kế tiếp chăng? Vì là thuộc cộng đồng mà để cho người dân khốn đốn. Chia rẽ như vậy để làm xem được sao? Lợi dụng chức vụ, không công bằng cho cộng đồng. Hôm họp báo 21 tháng 10, cô hiệu trưởng đã mặc quân phục của hậu vệ. Vậy vai trò của cô là hiệu trưởng hay là một trong những thành viên trong ban tổ chức làm tôi rất sợ hãi. Cô hiệu trưởng đang làm xáo trộn, sách động cộng đồng. Tại sao cô ta không muốn ôn hòa peaceful? Thanks so much.
My name is Diệu Thảo. I was proud to see a Vietnamese woman to be the first principal in the Bay Area. Mrs. Mary did a lot of good things for the community, but this time her action really affected the community negatively. Based on the event on November 11, she made me wait 3 weeks to give me an answer. I would like to ask, what is the system of working with her? Was there something hidden? please have Miss Mary explained about the unfair treatment? Or was it because the Hun Sen organization connected with the Vietnamese Student Association to organize the event? The action several weeks ago caused division among the community, and it was not fair for the community.
Thank you. Henry Nguyen.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Henny. I would like to have a few questions for the board member and the superintendent. From the first conference, the YB high school principal admitted she did not verify the source and accused the monk. And she also said that she called the Vietnam media representative to apologize for her mistake. But why didn't she apologize the monk? Is it fair for the monk, or because she the principal, so she don't have to apologize for the monk? Moreover, she wear the same uniform at the political group. Is she the member of that group? And the group changed the subject from the denying the fundraising event to accuse the monk is the communist monk without any evidence. And I also attended the press conference, and many her supporters is kind oppose what we're doing for orphan people in Vietnam, poor people and young kids in Vietnam. That's why they oppose against us. So she is the principal of YB High School. Why she seem involved in so much in politics? Is she planning running in politic position in near future? That's why. What is her purpose? What her intention in this press conference? Thank you.
Thank you. Hong An Tran, Annie?
Tôi tên là Hồng Trần, Annie. Kính thưa Hội đồng Ban Quản trị và Tổng Giám đốc, tôi là Hồng Trần. Tôi có quyền đòi hỏi một sự công bằng như một người công dân Mỹ đã và đang làm việc đóng thuế hàng năm cho nhà nước. Từ một chuyện nhỏ hiểu lầm giữa thầy Thích Lệ Tịnh và cô hiệu trưởng về chuyện mướn hội trường mà cô không tinh tế cư xử đúng cương vị của một vị hiệu trưởng. Cô gián tiếp mở họp báo, kích động YouTube và truyền thông để mọi việc đi quá xa, xáo trộn cộng đồng và tôn giáo, dẫn đến chẳng những không dừng lại mà YouTuber mượn mạng xã hội muốn tẩy chay những mạnh thường quân như chúng tôi. Xin hỏi công bằng ở đâu khi chúng tôi luôn luôn chỉ muốn giúp đời, hướng về điều tốt cho nhân loại? Xin ban hội đồng quản trị và ngài tổng giám đốc xét lại sự việc cho tôi và một sự công bằng, xin tri ân. Dạ. Thank you.
My name is Hồng Trần. On Thursday, November 2nd, 23, I would like to request the fairness as a American citizen who worked and paid tax annually for the government from a small misunderstanding between the Buddhist monk Thích Lệ Tịnh and the Yabuvana principle about the renting of the hall. Mrs. Mary did not treat the monk fairly as a principal. She indirectly organized the press conference to rally the media to cause disturb in the community and between the religions. from that, people boycotted the donors. So we're asking for fairness. We only wanted to help the community and do good things for people. We would like to ask the board trustee and the superintendent to review this matter and to bring fairness to me. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Tan Nguyen.
Hello, my name is Tan Nguyen. I'm sorry, I had to speak Vietnamese. My language is not good. Okay, my name is Tan Nguyen. Tôi là một nhà bảo trợ cho rất nhiều chương trình gây quỹ từ thiện cho cộng đồng. Trong đó có gây quỹ cho học sinh nghèo tại Yapavana, ở trường học YB, I'm sorry, trường học YB. Kính thưa quý vị, vì nghe những tin đồn thất thiệt, những chữ rumor do những kẻ xấu chia rẽ cộng đồng mà cô hiệu trưởng không tìm hiểu kiểm chứng để đem đến việc xáo trộn trong cộng đồng Việt Nam. Cô hiệu trưởng đã nhờ nhóm hậu vệ cảnh sát quốc gia Việt Nam đã một cuộc họp báo mời tất cả các hội đoàn, báo chí, YouTuber để đem tới những cái chuyện xáo trộn cho cộng đồng. Cô hiệu trưởng trong khi cô hiệu trưởng mở cuộc họp báo thì cô trưởng mặc cái đồng phục của ban hậu vệ quân lực Việt Nam Cộng Hòa. Thì trong cái vấn đề này thì cô hiệu trưởng là hiệu trưởng hay là một người của trong ban hậu vệ Việt Nam Cộng Hòa? Theo tôi được biết thì cô hiệu trưởng không nên làm chính trị ở trong cái cộng đồng, ở trong cái học khu. Trong học khu rồi cuối cùng của tôi là yêu cầu cô hiệu trưởng trường YB High School nhờ nhóm hậu vệ quân lực Việt Nam Cộng Hòa mở lại cuộc họp báo để kêu gọi những YouTuber tháo gỡ bỏ những cái clip, những cái kênh đã công kích bôi nhọ để trả lại sự công bằng cho chúng tôi, và chúng tôi cần một lời xin lỗi. Xin chân thành cảm ơn quý vị và ban giám đốc.
Thank you.
My name is Tan Nguyen. I'm one of the people that sponsors for many charity events, and including the events for the poor students at Yabubana. Based on the rumors from the bad people that want to divide the community, the principal did not investigate, but she organized the press conference to disrupt the Vietnamese community. The principal asked the Vietnamese nationalists to organize a press conference with many organizations. She wore the military uniform. So as a principal, she's a role model for thousands of students and the young generation. She did not behave wisely. That led to the disruption of the committee and the media. So we would like to ask her to remove all the attacking actions that affected seriously to the committee spiritually and spiritually. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have any comments online?
Jimmy Pham, are you still interested in speaking? If so, you have 2 minutes to do so. Jimmy Pham, you would have to unmute yourself and then you have 2 minutes. It does not look that like Mr. Pham would like to speak. So no, there's no more online public comment. Is there any written comment this evening?
Okay, I just saw a hand go up. Hung Do.
Mr. Hung Do, you have 2 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. The School Board of Trustee. My name is Hung Do. I am listening in here, and I just would like to request that the Board of Trustee of Superintendent to truly investigate, because there are information that I heard that may be misrepresented on behalf of the principal. There are many, many things, and the principal may not be in control of the community organization that creating or inviting people to the press conference. So in fairness to everyone, and I need to stress that the fairness here has to be on both sides. So with that, I just request to have fully investigate and asking for proof for all of the acquisition that been presented. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Jimmy Pham, you have 2 minutes to speak.
Jimmy, are you able to unmute yourself because you're muted? You have permission to speak, but you need to unmute yourself. You can look for the unmute button on your computer.
Ok, yeah. Thưa quý vị, tôi đã xin phép được thưa quý vị như thế này. Tôi biết được rõ là quý vị hiểu sai vấn đề. Ở cái chỗ là cái Facilitron là một cái website để mướn những cái nơi mà quý vị cần làm một cái event nào đó trong trường trung học ở tại khu vực San Jose này. Ok, cô hiệu trưởng Paulette Barry không có dính dấp gì cái việc cho mướn hết. Cô cũng chỉ là một người mướn như quý vị thôi. Không có khác gì hết. Thật ra khi cô tổ chức một cái buổi tiệc gây quỹ để giúp các em học sinh trong trường, các em đó là các học sinh nghèo, các em không có nhà cửa để ở, các em đã ở ngoài xe, các em ở ngoài cái trailer. Cô thấy cái hoàn cảnh đó, cô mới làm cái chuyện này để cứu giúp các em đó, học sinh của trường YB. Thì quý vị lại mướn cái ngày tổ chức gây quỹ để có thể là làm cái việc gây quỹ, cái điều đó hợp lý thôi, nhưng mà lại trùng cái ngày đó. Thế thì quý vị phải làm cái đơn gửi cho Facilitron, not cô hiệu trưởng. Thật ra người quyết định cuối cùng vẫn là cái Facilitron. Đó, phải nói cho rõ vậy nha. Để quý vị hiểu rằng là không có sự tranh giành ở đây. Quý vị hiểu lầm một cách là không thể tưởng tượng nổi. Một người cơ quan chính thức cho mướn, một người là hiệu trưởng ở trường, hai cái đó không dính dấp nhau. Cô kia mướn trước, quý vị mướn sau, chưa được approve thì quý vị đâu có quyền gì khiếu nại. Và Phật tử quý vị cứ lên tiếng là phản đối cô này là lợi dụng hiệu trưởng để mà chia rẽ cộng đồng. Chính quý vị là những người chia rẽ cộng đồng, vì quý vị không hiểu đầu đuôi câu chuyện gì hết trơn. Quý vị không hiểu được vấn đề. Ok, thành ra đó quý vị nhớ giùm cho tôi phải nhìn vấn đề cho rõ ràng. Mọi chuyện có nghĩa là có bên superintendent, có một cái board để mà nghiên cứu vấn đề. Và cá nhân tôi sẽ đứng ra tuyên thệ để nói sự thật về vấn đề này cho quý vị hiểu rằng quý vị là những người hiểu sai vấn đề hết. Thì nói tóm lại, xin vui lòng ngưng lại cái việc này đi. Vì nếu quý vị làm cái việc này tiếp tục, chính quý vị là những kẻ phá hoại cộng đồng. Xin hết.
Thank you, Jimmy. Can we get translation, please?
The gentleman said there was a misunderstanding between the members that spoke tonight about how to rent the facility at Yabuana. They have to go to Facilitron to rent a facility, and the principal has nothing to do with it. She did a fundraising event for the poor students, the homeless students that have to sleep in the car. So she tried to help the students. On the same day, the Buddhist temple had a fundraising event. So it had nothing to do with not allowing the Buddhist temple to use Yabuana. So the action by the people tonight that spoke against her really divided the community. So he would like the members that spoke to the board tonight to understand that renting the facility for the event has to go to Facilitron, not go to the principal and cause a lot of misunderstanding. And actually, he said the members that spoke tonight are the people that divided the community.
Thank you. I think that concludes public comment. Right. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. Appreciate it. We are now moving on to section 11. 11.01, Superintendent's Report.
Thanks for that. As you know, the board directed administration to create a convening.
Oh, hold on. Sorry, Glenn. Go ahead, Vân.
Chúng tôi cảm ơn tất cả quý vị đã đến đây để nói điều trần ngày hôm nay, và quý vị sẽ đã nhận được những cái gì của bên ông tổng giám đốc. Dạ, đó là I just want to say thank you, and the superintendent will listen and acknowledge it. Okay.
Thank you for that, Trustee Lay. Thank you. Sorry, go.
No, thank you for that. Earlier, the board asked administration to hold a convening and a group of representatives from the district and our community and our student groups around safety and positive school climate. And so just want to report out that that group has already met with its first meeting. It'll be meeting again. They did a good job of lifting up some issues and making sure that we're getting the various viewpoints or opinions around those issues so that can be presented to you at this board study session that will take place after their second task force meeting. At the first meeting, they also worked on putting a survey, its final touches on a survey that went out to students, families, and staff. That went out Monday, and as of today, we have 3,559 responses, which is a great response. Just want to remind the community that the survey is still open. They'll be looking at those results next Thursday and just bringing forward the information. They will not be making recommendations to the board study session, but just lifting up issues and making sure that the board has the opportunity to hear various perspectives, and then also to be able to ask questions, and then to perhaps give some direction or an ask to that group if necessary. So thanks to all that participated, and more to come.
Thank you for that. Really was a 5-minute update, maybe even less. All right. Yep. Okay, we're now in 11.02. Discussion under action to receive and adopt second reading of Senior Manager Internal Audit Proposed Annual Audit Work Plan 2023-24, Kelly Kwong, Senior Manager of Internal Audit.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. Kelly Kwong, Senior Manager of Internal Audit. I'm presenting to you the annual audit work plan as a second reading for final adoption. It went to the audit committee for discussion on October 17th. If I can just look to our audit committee chair, Brian, and our vice chair, Vaughn, if you have anything to add.
Looks like there's nothing to add. Do we have any questions or comments? No.
Just that I appreciated having time to talk with our auditor and come up more to speed. Because I'm not as involved as the audit chair and co-chair, what have you, but I am understanding more her work and areas of emphasis for the organization. And as a PS, in response to my line of questioning, I've become aware that we really do need to strengthen our policies, procedures, protocols. What is requested for expenditure, rely on understandings that people have, or practices that are understood but not actually committed to policy and procedure. So I just make that comment for the full board and for our co-chairs of the audit committee.
Thank you for that. Anything else?
Just appreciate your work.
Thank you very much. Likewise, appreciate your work very much.
If I might just gonna ask a very quick line, Ms. Kwong, our independent auditor, has been very modest, but there have been significant progress being made in the auditing process, and I think be good for her to share that with the rest of the board.
I do want to send my appreciation to the Superintendent's Council for their support. Thank you.
This, we do need to make.
Yeah, this does require action for approval of the second reading.
Approval or acceptance of this audit work.
There's a motion by Trustee Herrera, seconded by Doe. Emily, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The vote passes unanimously. Thank you, Mrs. Khan. Okay, we are now going to section 12. Presentation regarding school site progress and program highlights. Martha Brazil, Principal Oak Grove High School, and Bjorn Berg, Principal Independence High School. The floor is yours. Oh. Whatever works for you.
Okay.
Thank you for having me this evening. It's been a couple of years, so it's nice to be back. So building equitable communities independence, going to highlight several things that we're doing so far this year. If we can go to the next one. As always,
Closer to the microphone.
Sorry.
Especially for those online, they need to hear it clearly.
Got it. I'm also tall, so, okay. It's green, yes. Okay. All right. As always, equitable communities, what we strive for is independence. I actually got a great email from a parent earlier today thanking us for some things that we did on campus, and I was able to quote this to the parents, and always trying to make sure all of our students are welcome and supported. We can go to the next one. We've been infusing this through MTSS to make sure that we make this real in all of our classrooms, work through like the APTS, the MTSS TOS that we have, dynamic and wonderful team that we have, and then aligning that with the board policies that we have, making sure that everything we do.
Sorry to interrupt, but is there a green light on there? The voice does not sound amplified.
Okay. All right, let's see if this works. So yeah, aligning MTSS to policy, making sure that what we're doing aligns with what the board wants us doing. If we can go to the next one. Independence High School, our mission, Independence High School is a multicultural and multilingual community that provides students with rich opportunities for personal academic growth while modeling belonging, diversity, and open access for all. This is something we did probably about 7 years ago, staff members going through a full review process. Next one. So demographics of the school, just the breakdown. Forgive the font size on this. Seabed's date, we had 2380. We have been declining through the years. We've seen some interesting changes in that this year in that our ELD1 numbers have been increasing. while other numbers have been decreasing. Roughly 25% each grade, and then major subgroups, Asian is 38.9%, Hispanic 32.4%, Filipino just under 18%, and everything else just under 5%. So extremely diverse group that's been fairly consistent through the years. English learners, so up until this year, we were one of the 5 ELD hubs in the district, taking all of the newcomer students, ELD 1, 2, and 3. That has increased over this year, so we continue doing that, but 21% of our students are qualified as English learners. And then long-term of those students, it is 52% of the 519, short-term 47%, qualified with an IEP, 250, just over 10% of our students. And then socioeconomically disadvantaged, it is just under 50% of our students qualify. And serving those students, forgive me, the 2390, the number is slightly different. I update every Friday, and so that was our number. Certificated staff members, we had 132, classified 42. Administrators were staffed for 5. We don't have a dean currently, but we still are running with 4 and doing a great job this year. And one of the interesting nuances for independence, 103 acres, so giant landmass, shared with a number of neighbors. Pegasus, KIPP, DCP, ACE, Santa Clara County Office of Ed. We had a wonderful Halloween party for them yesterday. Our teaching academy put on. It was outstanding. So if we can go to the next one.
And a library, right?
And a library, yeah, and Overfall Gardens and a park across the street the other way, and yeah. So our promise, college and career readiness. So interesting thing along this is looking at how many of our students are graduating. This is the local cohort of our students graduating. How many are meeting A through G? How many meet the Spartan Eastside Promise? And then that dark purple is going on to college in the fall afterwards. One of the things, like I mentioned earlier, one of those gaps is that students who enter independent ELD based on what grade they're entering with us, or if they're in special education courses, may not be A through G or Spartan Eastside Promise right away, but are still going on. We want to make sure and increase that number. We want all of our students going on post-secondary, but so there are some gaps. We can go to the next one. Thank you. Spartan Eastside Promise. We've got this in the newsletter every Monday. We make sure all our students know this. In one of the interventions we'll get to later, we had teachers talking about this to students as well. So just making sure all of our students know that right in their backyard, they have a wonderful opportunity. So this year, we've been looking at 3 levels of data. We've been looking at a 4-year data plan, 1 year, and then ongoing real-time data, as real-time as we can get. So 4-year, we're looking at graduation rates. This is targeted subgroups that we've had that are not performing at the same level as all of our other students. Students with disabilities, Hispanic and African-American students. The 1-year data is on track for graduation for those freshmen, sophomores, juniors, making sure they're making adequate progress and that we're able to give the interventions needed to get them back on track. And then the on-time ongoing data is at every 6 weeks, we're able to look at the early warning system that the district provides through Illuminate, which does an analysis of not just grades, but grades, behavior, and attendance to see if there are any marking factors of this student may need a little more love, or we need to do some serious interventions to figure out what's going on. Right, so the 4-year graduation rate, the arrows there are our 3 subgroups that we were looking at. These are percentages. So African-American, as I said earlier, under 5%. So the percentage, it's not a lot of students, but we need to get those interventions and make sure we're meeting students where they are early to get them across that stage. Hispanic students, figuring out what is going on, where are those gaps? Is it certain courses that we're missing in? Is it just figuring out what we can do to bring those interventions? And then students with disabilities, it's figuring out, is this a student who qualified late and may have been off track for a while? Is this a student who needs more interventions? We do keep 5th-year students. Students with an IEP can stay to the age of 22, but making sure that motivation stays so that we can get that student to graduate. Right. So with this, the targeted populations, actions and responses, it's that progress monitoring, it's the counselor work constantly, it's figuring out in the courses, what are those interventions that we can give, graduation plans for all students, credit recovery tutoring options. We have the assets program this year. We're looking at some other possibilities down the road. We use Edgenuity, we do a grad academy, we have a math recovery program, and then assets, trying to augment things, but a lot of that is after the school day. So we're trying to figure out what we can do during the school day to support our students so that they don't have to do something extra. And then looking at like Pegasus is in our backyard, so a lot of students do end up going there, but we'd rather keep them at Independence if we can. Then for the 1 year, it's the on-track graduation rate for, again, these are the subgroups that we were looking at. So I've put in kind of metric of all students, and then African-American ninth graders didn't have anyone, small subgroup, so there's no green line. For 2022, Hispanic students below and students with disabilities below is freshmen, 10th grade, again, below. And then juniors, we see the same trends. So figuring out how we can get these subgroups be doing better. Interventions that we've added, support from the district, the freshman transition program. Been running that for a couple of years. The sophomore opportunity program we brought back, trying to capture those sophomores and get them tied into what's going on so that they have a safe place on campus, something they can go to, and they know how to adjust for whatever the obstacles are. Parent information meetings, we've been doing counseling information nights, grade conferences. We've done programs for parents like PK, and then meetings for students with disabilities. And counseling presentations, all grades. Enjoyed walking through one today, talking about both emotional and intellectual regulation, being aware of what's going on with yourself. Am I able to address homework right now, or do I need to take a moment? Just making sure our students are equipped and ready. Right, and then the more exciting one that I like, just because it's more tangible and immediate, is the early warning system. So the key at the bottom, green is low or no risk. That's any student who's gotten 1 point. 1 point can be 1D, 1 full day absence, or 1 referral on the early warning system. First alert is any student who gets 2 through 4 points. And so same ranking on that, or 2 through 4, a D, maybe a full day absence, referral. And then at risk is 5+ points. And then did an analysis of what we got from the first marking period and separated that out. So it's only students with grades. So attendance is something we need to look at, but just seeing kind of where the breakdown is. Second one is the kind of percentage in raw numbers. So that first alert, we don't have that many students, but it's figuring out those students where if it's just 1D or F, how do we fix that? And so we'll get to what we're doing about that in the next slide.
And this is for all students?
Yes.
That night? Okay, so it's not like just the focus students, it's the whole school.
Sorry, let me clarify. No, there's all students are eligible to end up on this, but if a student has perfect attendance, no Ds or Fs, no referrals, they won't appear on it. But they might appear in the next marking period 1 to marking period 2. We need to do the analysis to see if the student gets added.
But this specific slide is representative of the whole school. And these are the students from the whole school that are either low or no risk, first alert, or at risk.
I pulled this from the district data system, Illuminate. So yes.
Yeah, so you'll see that right now there are 1,524 students that have at least at 1 point. But if you look underneath that, the school total is 2,370. So there's about 800 kids that haven't had a referral, a full day's attendance or a D.
Yeah, and where this question was coming from, I know he mentioned a few specific target areas. I just wanted to make sure that this data was, I was clear on what it was representing. I'm clear now.
On the next slide, it's the group that we call good.
Oh, got it. Okay.
48.7.
Cool,
So
thanks.
we ran the numbers for ourselves and set kind of some cut points of 7 days of absence, 7 full days of absence. That's an attendance problem. We need to address that with our attendance team, figuring out what's going on there. Classroom, we cut it 7 full day absences and 1 D or 1 F, less than 7 full day absences. For that, we need to find out from those individual teachers, why is the student failing only your class if they're there consistently? And so we have an ask of our staff on this. Then for counseling, it's under 7 absences, 2 to 3 Ds or Fs. No IEP or 504 because those students will already have a coordinator or case manager. and then case managers for those students. And then those students with less than 7 days of absence with 4+ Ds or Fs, our MTSS team is doing kind of a pre-SST on those students to triage.
Got it. So these are almost strategies. So you're finding trends and you're saying, okay, this group is an attendance issue. This other group, I need to figure out what's going on in the classroom. This other group needs some additional support from our counseling staff. This other group, case managers, because they have an IEP or 504. And this last group, our MTSS team. Great.
Yeah. And we're data collecting at this time. So for the classroom teachers, we're just asking, hey, what are these students? Is it a homework thing? Is it they haven't done tests? What are some strategies we can use? How are we in support of the students in the class? Identify the gaps, contact students' family with feedback so that we can have some actual data on that. I've had some great conversation with teachers of I've done this already, or when we gave them the list, it's, well, this student, there was a plagiarism issue early on. We've already talked about this. It's been addressed. The grade is raised. So some good conversations happening about that. Counseling, identifying the gaps, and then MTSS team is doing pre-SST through our care teams, just to see like, what can we actually find out? So a lot of data and stuff, but some successes for this year. Inaugural girls flag football team. They had a great time. Just adorable. Marching band, we're going to London to play the New Year's Day parade this year. So yeah, I think there's a field trip packet coming soon. I mean,
They're looking for chaperoning opportunities.
Where am I going to London as the Border Sixers, you know?
Staff successes, the panorama data just came out. And so from the student panorama, school safety increased 10%. Like the perception is great. And the vibe on campus is so nice right now. Our safety team, proactive interventions and safety plans, they've been doing them left and right. And we have added staff and they're doing a wonderful job. It's been really, really good. And then campus, our student union set to open soon. So looking forward to that. I pulled that chart from SHAPE just to show the number of referrals over the last 3 years. Our number is, I mean, we're still getting them. There's still occasional things happening, but we're dealing with it and we're doing a great job. And that's from our homecoming rally students.
That's a question.
Yes.
Student panorama school safety increased 10%. Increased 10% from last year? Or what is 10% here? Of staff successes.
It's from I believe it was from the spring survey, spring administration that we did. And so comparing those two numbers, it increased significantly. It's set to go out to all staff tomorrow in my update email to them. Yeah, it increased 10 points from the last time we gave the students the survey.
Students feel more safer? That will increase 10%?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
The Say Something app is being used more. We're getting, yeah, things are good.
Yeah, thank you.
And then work in progress that we're doing for marking period 1, each staff has 3 target students I'm trying to address. And then in professional development, staff's collaborating around 10 intentional classroom strategies that they identified in the spring. And so we're doing focus groups on this, providing opportunities for revision and retakes to students, grouping students intentionally, providing exams of successes in student work benchmarks, providing clear expectations, providing rubrics, allowing use of notes during assessments. These are things that staff are discussing and deciding on, can these be our common assurances for all students? Are these things that we're going to be able to provide? And they're having really good conversations on this. Last Thursday, I enjoyed being in a room and teacher raised her hand saying, I'm in this group because I don't believe in this right now. So I just want to hear why other people like this idea. And really good conversations. So they're doing—
Bjorn, I think you're underselling this point a little bit. I just want to share the wonderful work that the administration team has done, being led by the APTS in coordination with the MTSS TOSA. These 10 strategies came from teachers. And so teachers were able to identify 2 things. One, I do this well. I'm an expert in this and I do it in my classroom, so that then they created this whole list of teachers who other teachers can go to And then the second part was teachers saying, hey, not sure on this one. I want to learn more about it for whatever reason, whether like Mr. Berg said here, I don't really believe in it or buy into, so let me learn more. Or, hey, I've been wanting to do this, but just quite can't get it, but I'm going to go learn from my colleague. And so they've created through these 10 strategies, a list of teachers who already do it and can be seen as experts, and a group of teachers in different areas who are interested in that. And so there's this great potential for next steps. I know I'm stealing, but I'm just so excited about this, and you were underselling it, principal. Just really express how wonderful this particular work that they're doing at Independence.
The percentage next to each of those came from staff of, I'm already on board and I'm doing this, or I do this in some fashion. So like 86% of our staff already do opportunities for revisions and retakes. So we're assessing what staff are already doing and then connecting them to each other. They're doing a great job. And yeah, Mr. Salgado and Dr. Lamontagne are just dynamic in what they're doing. Yeah, and then departments working in focus areas. We have a WASC next year. And then if we can go to the next one, back to our girls flag football team again. They just outstanding. They're adorable. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Last, I'm sorry.
No, this is great. This is great. Succinct to the point, celebrations, love it. Colleagues, questions, comments?
Thumbs up.
Thank you. Yes.
The page when we talk about six-week marking. No, that's the one that has attendance or student. Yeah, the second one that has attendance. I think it's at page 4. Yeah. Doing that, you take this data. When did you have this data? Then to support, the ongoing on-time data. Because, this is wonderful to have a data, our student with 7+ absence, it's really tremendously impact into, staff, teacher, and also for student. Can you help me understand a bit more on that data and what do you do in terms of how can we help, when you get this data?
So the marking period ends tomorrow. We'll get the grades next Wednesday, and then we'll get the EWS system again, and we're going to do the comparison of, are these students still in kind of the low risk, high risk? Where are they? Have the interventions that we've been trying to see those trends of, okay, the student only had 1 D, they're back on Spartan Eastside Promise now, or the student is now at 2 Ds or D and an F, trying to figure out what interventions we can use. So we're looking at those trends over time, seeing if we can kind of shrink those numbers and get more students in that good section if we can. We've been doing the attendance recovery conferences, ARC meetings for trying to address all the issues. Referrals is not a major one that we've had. So we're going to be doing that comparison, and it's tied to the marking periods, because that's when we get grades from everyone that we can do that comparison of.
So what is the role of the 4 administrator in this data?
He is leading this. He's the brain behind this of, okay, Mr. Salgado, APTS. Yeah, former APA, former dean. Yeah. He's the one leading the team that's going through and doing this analysis of all of this.
They will report back to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah, we talk all the time.
I have. Thank you. It's good.
Go ahead.
I have a quick question, and this is not really for you, but you probably know the answers, but it's for everyone. But so a point for 1 day absence, when does that fall off? Is that every 6 weeks that falls off, or like?
Yeah, it's not cumulative. So it's every 6 weeks. And so a student can, if they only had 1 absence during this 6th period, they may not surface again in the next grading report because they had 0 absences for that one.
Got it. Okay. So it's exactly, that makes sense. Is the same with referrals too?
Yes.
Other questions or comments, colleagues?
Want to appreciate Associate Superintendent Marquez spotlighting the staff collaboration part. As you were saying, he was probably underselling it.
A lot of talking on all of this and great collaboration.
Awesome. Emily, do you have any comments? When I say colleagues, you know, everybody on the dais. And if you don't, that's okay. I don't.
Well, I guess from a student perspective, I'm kind of wondering about like how you think school spirit is going within your school.
It's been good from my perception. I mean, Halloween, we had so many students dressed up. Seeing students in inflatable monkey costumes running across the quad it's been really good lately. Our homecoming rally was great. We had our tailgate for our senior night, football night tonight. Lots of students came out. So I think it's been going really well.
Love it. I love it. Thank you for mentioning that, Emily. Bjorn, I just, you have so much going on at your school. It's enormous, to say the least, with all the things happening. And so I really hope that you take some time to celebrate all the wins, big and small, because it's important. I personally, that's an area of growth for me, and I know the importance of it. So I make sure to share it with others. There's a lot to celebrate here. I hope you're feeling proud. I love the thoughtfulness and the plan around this. Like, this is what we're going to do. This is what staff feels energy around. This is the percentage that is already saying, I'm doing this, this, and that. We know these strategies are really going to make an impact on our students, and just being able to see this every 6 weeks is going to be so powerful for everybody involved. So thank you for that. And I do have one question, which is actually on this slide. With the counseling and case managers, and I guess attendance, this also falls in as well. Like, how often or what strategies are they using to engage? Like, let me just hone in on counseling for a second. I feel like that might be an easier example. Like, are we saying if a student is flagged as a counseling need, will there be a system in place, or is there a system in place to make sure that they are seen within a week or within 2 weeks? Because I mean, when I think about my experience, I know counseling was so important and it changed my trajectory. So I'm always curious about.
We have an ask for, when we rolled this out to the whole staff, it was 2 meetings that we had with them, and counseling, the ask is for them to meet with each of the students and give us feedback on it, so that we know kind of what are those interventions, so we can kind of raise up trends to see what is going on.
Okay. But you make sure that the meeting actually happens no matter how many follow-ups we need to do with the kids. I guess that's my question.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you.
How many years that you have a PK program in your school?
Okay,
PK.
COVID, it's a little fuzzy. I think we've run it twice at this point. Yeah, I think last year and then once during COVID, but that was all over Zoom. Yeah.
Yeah, I think after COVID, they reached out back to us and they were able to start doing the sessions again. And so this is our 2nd year of contract with them, where they're doing rotations with our schools.
To hear more the accomplishment for the PK program, as maybe is the model for all of this site, because I think it's really helpful for the students as well as the parents.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Principal Bird. I want to thank you for your leadership and your intentionality in making sure that we're zeroing in on students and lifting that up and allowing staff a means of doing that as well. Definitely working.
Hello, good evening. I'm Martha Brazil, principal at Oak Grove, and I want to thank the board for letting me present this tonight. And I do want to quote the wise words of our board member, Doe, less is more. Remember that as we're going through this thing. So a couple slides I'm going to go quickly through because you hear it every meeting and you just heard it right now. So just in terms of our equitable East Side communities, we've said for years, our students to belong and be successful. And that's exactly what that says. And so we are constantly looking at how we can address the student connection and also the academic growth for our students. So you'll see this throughout. Same thing with our MTSS, equitable communities, the responses. You're going to see everything that we're doing is that within the lens of MTSS work, looking at all of those different areas, not just academic, but also the social emotional needs, the behavioral needs and everything like that. And then you'll see at the very end, I was able to add a slide in here. So you'll see a fun thing with equity too. So our mission, our goal, our Oak Grove is committed to fostering a safe and inclusive and culturally responsive learning environment that provides high quality instruction for all students. The next slide, you'll see who we are. I presented this information to our staff on the first day of school, and it looks like this is a PDF. If it were a Google Doc, that bottom part would have come up at the very end. So what I did was I talked about, this is who we are. We're a very diverse school, and we have 121 staff members doing the work to support 1,417 students. And when you look at our breakdown, and it goes from low to high, we are now 57% Hispanic, 22% Asian, 17% of those are Vietnamese students. And then everything under there is less than 10%. So we're at 8.9 for white students, Black African-American are 5.4. If you look at the third column, you'll see where we have our social and economic disadvantaged students, 40%. Of those, 91% of those are free and reduced lunches, and 9% reduced, sorry. Our ELL learners, last time I presented to you, I talked about how the majority of our students were almost all long-term students. They've been here. We went through every single one of the students when we were trying to do the scheduling, and most of our EL long-term students have been here since kindergarten, first grade, and they just hadn't been redesignated. So at one point I talked about that was going to be our main goal. What's happened now that we've started an ELD program last year is our ELD numbers have significantly grown. You can see now we're at short-term EL or 90 students. And that's a lot because that's really 2 years worth of growth. We started last year with 5 ELD1 students and talked with Teresa, talked with Mr. Juan. Both of them said, yes, run that program, even though there's only 5 students. And by second semester, we had to open up a second class because we were up to 40. This year, there is a bet going on over and under how long before we open up another second class. So we have ELD1, ELD2, and both are growing tremendously. So it's really good growth. So when I was presenting this information to our staff, we had just finished WASC last year. And a lot of the conversation had to do with our not all of our students are going to college. And that was something that we heard over and over again. And so when we had this information we were given in over the summer, we thought, hey, this is a perfect time to share it. So I asked, hey, when you consider pre-COVID enrollment, because there are different, things have changed recently, but it's pre-COVID enrollment, what's your guess? How many of our kids are going on to college? And everybody likely guessed C. 51 to 75%. So it was really nice to show the next slide, which showed pre-COVID, we actually had 76 and 77% of our students going on to college. Now, they're not all 4-year universities, but in all honesty, we want them going somewhere. And 2-year college is great, especially right now. It's free. You get paid to go because you get $400 for textbooks each semester. So we were really happy to see pre-COVID enrollment. Since then, you can see our purple line has gone down some for 2022. Our A to G numbers have gone up a little bit, so that's great. But for some reason, the students aren't going on. Not that they're not going on; they are going on. But before we had such a difference, we had 75% of our students. So that's something that's interesting to look into to kind of figure out. Where we can identify that. But we are happy that the A to G component is rising because our goal is to make sure that we at least give our students the opportunity to make that choice where they go. We do not want to be the ones that don't put them in the class that they need to go to a 4-year university if they choose to do it. If they don't and they want to go to community college, they have that option, but at least they're making that choice, not us. So that's something we're really happy about, that those numbers, and that's actually, you'll see one of our goals, or two of our goals throughout this presentation. Speaking of, I talk about, I love, community college, I'm a big fan, but I'm also a Spartan at heart. Both of my degrees are from San Jose State, so I'm super happy with this program. We announce this every opportunity. We have a school-wide lesson focused just on this, so our students know about this. We share it with our parents. We had a field trip, 68 of our students. We thought we were getting a bus. We didn't get a bus, but they still went. They trekked down a mile to the light rail station and went on the light rail to San Jose State. And there they are at the bottom. Sergio, good job organizing everything. But these are our students, and they had a great time. So got a lot of information. So super happy with that. Our 3 levels of data, very similar to independence. We are looking A to G eligibility, and I'll show you why in just a second, why theirs is graduation rate and ours is A to G eligibility for both our 4-year long-term goal of reaching. And then you're going to see we narrow it down to what we're going to look at year by year, and then just really refined search on that ongoing early warning system where we can really do that work daily. So you'll see that. So 4-year, our graduation rate. Ideally, it would be 100% for everybody. Of course, that's the goal. But we do have it's 90 to 95, depending on what the groups that we're looking at. What we want to focus on are our Hispanic population. You see that they are 57% of our enrollment, and yet it is the lowest percentage in terms of graduation rate. Our Hispanic students are 86.5 for last year, and our English language learners are 81.6. When I focus on this, I want to emphasize that we're not only targeting our Latino students. We want everybody to graduate. But you can look at our percentages and you can see, for example, our Asian population, 99% graduate. They're doing great. And we still want to support that 1%. But when we're looking at where is the greatest need, we're going to look at our Hispanic students. And the nice thing is you'll see that our Hispanic students, when we help them, we're helping so many more of those subgroups. We're helping our English language learners. We're helping our students with disabilities. We're helping our migrant ed students. So just because I'm focusing on one doesn't mean that they're the only people who are going to benefit. So again, we started at 86, and why I said we're looking at A to G eligibility. So next one, sorry. So 86 I put down because I'm not good at remembering numbers, so I had to put cheat sheets up here. So we started at 86.5 for graduation rate, and when you look A to G eligibility, that drops down to 30%. And when you look at for our English language learners, 81.6, that drops down to 25.8%. So that's a big drop. And I don't know exactly how much in terms, there's a lot of things that can take a student off track. If they have, like, on the other slide, there's a little key that shows like what it's looking for in terms of being A to G eligible, but you need to have a C or better in all of the different A to G courses. So if you get a D in one class, freshman year, that takes you off until you can make that up. And so it's really easy to get off track, and then that keeps you off track for a little while. So we really want to focus in on that and what we can do. So if you go to the next slide, here is how we're going to target 4-year data. This is the big stuff. This is the plan ahead, the long view. And so we're going to continue to provide relevant professional development for our staff. Just this year, we're focusing on our EL students, particularly EL professional development that can be used in non-ELD classes, because those teachers already have specialized training. But we need to make sure that we're addressing the other 40% of the students who are in mainstream classes that are struggling. And so we're offering a lot of professional development for our EL students. Also doing professional development for students with accommodations to make sure teachers know how to read those IEPs, how to implement the accommodations, how students are going to learn best. And the great thing about the way we structured our professional development this year is that it's no longer, oh, this week I'm going to come here, and then I'm going to come here, and then there's trainings that they don't go to. We actually broke our groups up into 3 groups. And so This week you're there, next week you're here, this week. So everybody is getting all of this training. So that's really nice. Master schedule, we're ensuring students have access to A to G coursework, including greater inclusion of students with disabilities. And this is something that started with our district, and it's great. There's 2 questions that are added onto our IEPs. When we meet with parents, parents need to know when your student is going into a SAI, specialized academic instruction class, it is removing them from the A to G. So we really want to make sure our students, our parents realize what happens when if you have a student who is doing well but wants something easier, they need to know what that means when they come out of mainstream classes. And then also, as I said, the bottom one is really looking at that MTSS framework, looking at all the parts of a student, not just the grade, because there's other things that affect grades, and we're making sure we address that. This data is from last year, end of the year students. So if we're looking at grade 11, these are students that started freshman year where we left in March, and then sophomore year, it was distance learning. And then last year was the first year back, and then here we are. And so here's where we're looking by year, 9, 10, and 11. You could see 20% of our 9th graders were on track, 16% of our 10th graders last year, and 16% of our juniors. One thing that we do, and we do well, is we recover for our students. So you remember when I showed the 4-year data graduation rate, our Hispanic students were at 30.6 and our EL students were at 25.8. So you can see junior year, senior year, they're able to recover a lot of credit, or the percentage goes up because we're able to have recovery stuff. So what we're looking at now is not waiting so long and figuring out what we can implement within the school day to get them freshman year, sophomore year, so that they are back on track early on.
So this is the same group of students?
No, this is looking last year. We got this data over the summer, and what it is last year's 9th graders, last year's 10th graders, last year's 11th graders.
Okay.
And then the numbers at the bottom were where our seniors were last year. And that's where I was trying to point out, we get them at the end, but we need to try and figure out how we have steps for that also.
Okay.
So some of the things we're doing. So we've had a freshman transition program in the past. And then we didn't have enough kids in there. And we have a great teacher doing freshman and sophomore this year. So it's really nice. And there's a lot of monitoring going on. He and I meet, we just met today. We met a week and a half ago. So we're meeting regularly to go over data. But he's doing a lot of intervention with them. So not only with the students, but with their parents and also with the teachers. He's shadowing, he's pushing into classrooms to see what these kids are doing in other kids' classes or teachers' classes. We have our assets tutoring. And this year we have math recovery, which is really nice. We have 2 math teachers who are meeting with teachers that coordinated with the department to say, hey, our math students are struggling, math 1. Who is open to having our kids come in? They work with us either first period or 7th period because the students don't have 7 classes. And we will reteach them. Will you let them retake their assignments, their tests? Will you increase their grade? Will you give them credit? All of the teachers said yes. And so we have kids that are going in there. So we're hoping to see now what changes after that. It took a while to get those classes because we didn't have that data initially, but we're super happy to see if that can make a difference to get that change happening now instead of senior year. Again, semester and end of the year, Cyber High, we offer through assets and through part of our school day. Summer school, we offer, but that's a hard one because our teachers are tired and nobody wants to teach summer school right now. And I understand. So we do offer mini sessions, shorter for the kids who are trying to bring up either an F or a D so they become A to G eligible. They just have a little bit of work they need to do. They can recover those credits. So it's nice. It's helped a lot of our kids since COVID is when they started it. Counselor meetings, school-wide lessons, and tutorial. We have tutorial built into our day now. Every Thursday, they have 30 minutes, and they actually have a program where they check in. They get checked out from their teacher. It's all logged. We know exactly where the kids are going, and they sign up Or teachers can say, hey, I want to meet with you. You come to me. And it's a really nice system we have for kids to get that tutorial built into the school day.
And am I reading that right? The school-wide lessons, they're focused on A through G, progress towards graduation and resources for support?
The one that we did that was focused for the AG eligibility, we have them going, we do them monthly, and we have them for all different things. We have them for social emotional, we have it for Spartan Promise, so there's a whole bunch of themes that we have going on. So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
For tutorial, you mentioned about 30 minutes every Thursday for students who retake exams. So what happens if a student need more time, when they have to retake exam, or they have many other classes that they did not make it? So how would you work, for the tutorial project that you have right now?
So the teachers will still, whenever possible, allow time for students to come. When we have teachers that still have kids come in for lunch, or they might have kids come after school. So there's still that, not every student needs it. And so making it an hour long would be pretty tough to do. Right now, we do have a number of kids that opt to go to different classes. And some just stay in their room and they work on homework. Some just stay in there just to kind of decompress and to relax. So it's how the student needs to use it, or if the teacher wants to call them in, but it's just something so that there's no longer oh, I don't have time. Well, you have time. And this is something I bring up in IEPs when someone says, oh, well, have you gone to Miss So-and-so during tutorial? How many times have you done this? Never. Okay, well, let's start doing this. So it's not necessarily going to help every single person if somebody needs more time, but it's built in to help a lot of our students.
I was wondering about, I heard about tutorial online. As not they have to retake the exam, but to help a student for homework or whatever. We still have that
Yes,
tutorial
paper.
online?
Yes.
We do. Okay,
Yes.
good.
Yeah, they do that.
I really want to learn more about that.
No. We have so many. We have assets, we have paper, we have and we have tutorial. That's where we try to make sure everybody is aware and we publicize that so that there are so many different opportunities to help with that. Absolutely. So here's the 6-week marking period that I won't have to go into as much detail. Again, if this was on Google Slides, it would have been one color at a time instead of getting everything. So I'll try to clarify. Mr. Berg did talk about the green, yellow, and red. And you can see the green, when we were looking at all students, we saw that we had 152 students that were low risk, or I'll actually go to red. That's the 5 or more. And we're targeting 5 to 15 because these are students that are showing that they're coming to school, they're turning in work, and yet they're still having some type of issue. So those are the ones we first go after. It's the low-hanging fruit. We can make the biggest change there. So we had 347 all students. Of those, only 162 were based on grades. Of those 162, when we broke it down to just our Hispanic students, we're looking at 116 there and there. And then the purple column is breaking it up by grade. So you can see when we're meeting by grade level or anything like that, you can see the difference there. If you go to the next slide, what I wanted to do is give you an idea, much like what Bjorn did.
Can we just pause for a quick second?
Yep.
And I pulled out my calculator. 72% of the students that are in red are Hispanic students.
72.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which makes sense why you're
We're
focused.
targeting.
I was just like, that number looks big, but when you really put it into perspective, it's like,
yeah,
this is why.
Right. And it's interesting when you look at the next page or the slide, I wanted to show there's such variation in terms of what a 12-point, I picked something that was fairly high. So there's such variation in terms of what a 12-point student, at-risk student is, and how those get targeted differently. So student A is a 12-point, is in chemistry getting an A, math got an F, world history B, English C, Spanish. So they're doing great academically in all the classes except for math. They about 7 points there. They have 3 full-day absences and then 2 behavior referrals. This is one of our smokers on campus. And so what we did with this as we're going through and we're looking, and we are going through to figure out how do we address these different students. Here we have it started with a student advisor because it was a referral. They got a point for a referral. So our student advisor is looking at this. She is working with our social worker because we're looking at drug and alcohol awareness classes in different groups that they're going to go into. So this is looking at student advisor. And one thing that's really nice right now with our advisor is they are sending emails. When they meet with the kids, they're finding out more than just why were you vaping? Why were you smoking? But what's happening in your classes? Why do you have an F in this class? Why do you have blah, blah, blah? And they're having those conversations and then sending emails to all the teachers, letting them know, hey, Johnny here might have da 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 da. These are some things that interest Johnny. These are some things that he says that he struggles in class. And so the teachers are able to get conversations going. 12 point for student B, A's in the different classes, an F in elective, and I didn't put the class because it's a singleton class, and 5 full days absences. That student was sick 5 days in a row for a week. And so that gave them 5 of those points. And so we're looking at, this is one that our APTS work group looked at, and is also working with the case manager to look and see what we can do with that elective class and what's going on and how we can support what we can look at for the IEP. And the third one, student C, this is one of our ELD students who is struggling and has a point for each of the classes and a 7 point. That's the big one. And we have our EL mentor looking with our counselor, and just as with what Mr. Berg said, our APTS is doing all of this work. He's the one who's going through, he's running it, he's teaching each group how to pull their own data so they can pull this. We're working with one of our next professional development meetings is our teachers to get trained so they can see what's going on, but to really get people doing this work more than just us.
Yeah. Can we go back to that slide? Student A, math 2. That student is also receiving some sort of academic support, right? And I bring up math because math, we know, is like the biggest hurdle for students in meeting A through G requirements. So they're not just going through the student advisor and social worker, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. There's more things that are going on, but that's just where, like I said, where the advisor is even sending something out to all the teachers and just saying, hey, here are some things. These are things that the student, one email that comes to mind is just saying for the teachers, this student is struggling with Canvas. This student is coming in and doesn't know how to use the technology. Can one of you help? And so it was the teacher for tutorial who actually sat with the student, made sure that they knew how to upload and how to submit assignments and stuff like that.
Okay.
But yes, there's conversations with, none of this is the work of just 2 people. That's for certain. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure. 'Cause
There's
I was
no
like,
way.
that is the
Yeah.
core class
Yeah.
and that.
And one other thing is with some of this, it's a matter of I'm not going to go back to the slide, but with some of this, it's a matter of, hey, we have some people where it's very similar and it's something small. We can pull people in together and we can have conversations with them. So it doesn't necessarily have to always be a one-on-one kind of thing. Something that goes along with this with the next slide that we did at the end of this first marking period, our counselors, well, let me go in order. Our flight support is constantly looking at those higher number students. So our MTSS group, it is our care team, it's our social workers, our student advisors, everybody that's sitting there trying to support the kids. Our advisors, as I said, meeting with the students based on EWS. She's the one who caught one of those. Our TOSAs are working with off-track students, whether it's our transition classes, our EL mentor. We have a data person who's pulling all of this and doing meetings as well. One thing to highlight, just to kind of go back to what you were saying, our counselor in APD, they pulled every 9th and 10th grader who showed up on this list. And they ended up scheduling, out of all of the parent phone calls, they scheduled 135 meetings. So our counseling tech, our team called personally 135 people. They came in throughout the week and at nighttime met with parents. We had our parent community involvement specialist and our social worker there as well, so they could help and show, again, it's not just the counselor doing this. Sometimes it takes other areas. And then what we're looking at is our department's also starting to look at our F rate. And then our successes. Increased point of contacts. We have more people that can do some of this stuff. We've had, if this were wood, I wish, it's been a nice, very calm year. I hope I'm not jinxing myself, but it's been great so that our advisors are actually able to do more of the work that we really want them to do. It's that connection, that preventative work. And so they're able to call in. We've got our, just all of these different groups that we're able to do this stuff. There's so many more points of contact now that we've never been able to have. It's really incredible. Again, with our wellness center, our care team, everybody. Parent engagement, we started a monthly newsletter. I've always sent out a weekly email to our parents in English and Spanish, and we started doing a newsletter as well. We do have a lot of parent meetings that we've done PK for years. We've had our Latino Parent Coalition, and they've always been a strong group, probably 80 people is where it starts off. But we're now doing focused meetings for students with disabilities and also ELD. We have an ELD parent meeting coming up where we're inviting all of them to come in and help provide services. Just like Bjorn said, or Mr. Berg. So our panorama survey coming up with safety and knowledge and fairness of discipline, because we really cracked down and there is no excuse. Nobody can say they don't know what our policy and expectations are, because we not only did the meetings in the theater where we had English classes bring in every student, but then we had follow-up meetings with students just saying, hey, as a reminder, this is what's going on. And then our classroom visits, our admin team goes out and we visit each of the classes, just do little pop-ins, which is really good to see what's going on. But we changed the focus and we're aligned more now with the California Standards for the Teaching Profession. So we're looking at what it is that they rate themselves on during evaluations, and we're looking at that kind of stuff. So it's pretty exciting. This just came up today, so thank you, Mary Gillen, for letting me add this last minute. We just had our students that were recognized today from the YWCA Power of Change Award winners. The lady in the center, the blonde, that's Erin Brockovich. So she was there to meet our students and to thank them for the work that they're doing. There have been a lot of efforts looking at how to not only provide the gender neutral restrooms, but also to advertise it, make sure it's publicized, make sure students know what's going on. And they've also been doing a lot of work with equity, making sure that our students know what healthy relationships are, and really pushing knowledge and awareness of the Title IX issues so that we don't have victims of sexual harassment that don't know what to do with that. So they were recognized today. It was really exciting, and I was glad I'm able to put that in. Next steps, identify common assurances. Just today, our staff meeting today was focused on going over the panorama data. And so we already told them next staff meeting or department collaboration, they're going to be going through and we're going to be identifying our common assurances. Department chairs will also visit us or join us for our classroom visits so that they can see what these teachers need. What kind of professional development would help best suit them? What other kind of supports might they need? Professional learning, we're going to be focused more on getting staff with EWS and continuing our parent engagement. And the last slide is just our graduate, our graduates a few years ago. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Brazil.
All right.
Yes.
I have a question. You did show one of the slide mentioned about Spartan Promise, that we have a bus to take a student to visit University, San Jose State. But I was wondering that it's not one size fit all, because some students were very intimidated or they're not ready to go to university. Do we have any mechanism, any other avenue to support the student to go visit either San Jose City College or Evergreen?
So we actually have a lot of students. Yes, there are. So it depends. There are some of our students with disabilities. The Special Services Department used to always allow, have field trips where they would take students because they wanted to make sure that they knew where the offices were, where they can get their accommodations and supports and stuff like that. We actually bring a lot of our colleges to our school. And so whether it's a college and career fair, we just had one with a bunch of presenters there, both business and colleges that were there. So yeah, we try to bring them to campus because there are some that we do. There are some schools that actually provide a bus and that we can go to take field trips. I want to say De Anza is one. And yeah, there are a couple that provide buses for us to take students, and it gets packed full. So it's nice.
All right, I saw one of the slides mentioned about reduced lunch. I don't think we have a reduced lunch anymore. Am I correct?
So yes, it's not the same kind of form like we used to have, but they still do submit income verification form. So we still do that because that's still, and this is a tough one because everybody gets a free lunch right now. And so that part isn't required for it, but it's still what our funding is based on when we're looking at our Title I funds and all that. So they're still going to look to see what our percentage is. So we encourage our students. We have different initiatives to try and get those numbers up, because for the last year or two, we were low. We're like 20, 30, whereas pre-COVID, when people had to pay for lunch, we were in the 45, 50% range. So right now it's nice. It's boosting back up. And we try to use as an incentive or as a reminder that they still will be able to, like for AP testing and stuff like that, they still get a reduced rate for a lot of things.
Awesome. My last question. Do we have enough bilingual teacher and staff to support the student in your school? Because I know that we have more than 50% of Hispanic, as well as roughly about 30% of Asian, which is Vietnamese. Do we have enough bilingual teacher or staff to support them?
We don't have enough to support all of our students. We do have teachers that are for Spanish. We have history teachers, we have English teachers, we have math teachers. We do have in a lot of different subjects, but definitely not enough to support all of ours. We do have our Spanish speakers teaching our sheltered classes. So we have a Spanish speaker who's doing math with our sheltered kids. So we try to do that whenever possible, but no, we definitely don't have enough. But I can tell you that there are a lot of people that are speaking a lot more Spanish, including me, than I've ever spoken before. Well, I lived in Mexico, so I did speak then. But even like a lot of people are just brushing up on Spanish because it's becoming much more handy lately.
You can call Superintendent Vanessy. He can speak
Oh, no.
Spanish. But I was wondering about the Asian, student, the Vietnamese. Most of the student Vietnamese. Do we have enough Vietnamese teachers and staff who help support the student?
So we have 2 Vietnamese teachers on campus, and we have a Vietnamese para-educator. So we do have a para-educator specifically to work with our students in these in the ELD classes.
Mr. President, if I can chime in, please.
Yeah, please.
So all our staff members are authorized to assist students who are limited English proficiency, so they have their CLAT certification when they get their credentials. But also in the past 2 years, we've added bilingual paraeducators or bilingual aides, in the classrooms. And so, in fact, we're hiring more tomorrow as we conduct the interviews. And so we're continuing to try to fill those positions. And so there are added staff member support for both Spanish and Vietnamese speaking students.
Appreciate that. That's all I have. Thank you, Martha.
Perfect.
Any other comments or questions?
Thank you. Thank you.
Just a super quick comment. I just on both presentations, really, I am so appreciating the your teachers' willingness to embrace retake and revision, because it's the nature of learning to not get it all right the first time, right? And so we, this emphasis on mastery rather than perfection.
Right.
I think that is so great to see that trending in that direction. And I'm like the little man in the chronicle out of his chair, clapping his hands, looking at how you are using the Illuminate data to not only inform conversations with students. I love the thing about these are 3 12-point students. Like,
Totally
Like-
different.
Like, it's totally different. These are not statistics anymore. This is like, this one I gotta say this one I gotta do that, this
Mhm.
one I gotta, right? And it just is informing conversations that will really make a difference. So evident to me. But also I see how you're using the data inform your professional development for your staff as well.
Mhm.
I mean, I think that's gonna be a game changer also. This is
Yeah.
just great to see.
Yeah. One thing,
Thank
just
you.
to chime in on what you said about not taking that test the first time, think about the driver's test. How many people have to take that driving test more than one time? So this is exactly why we are happy that our teachers are doing this.
Yes.
So, perfect. Thank you so much. Enjoyed being here.
Thank you.
I really did too.
Okay, thank you, schools. We are now on to section 13. Let's see. 13.01, contracts for professional services over 2,500. Do we have a motion on the floor? Cortez, you got it. Moved by trustee Herrera, seconded by trustee Doe. Emily is not here. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes unanimously. All right, that's 13. 14, there's nothing under 14. 15, do you have a motion to approve bond capital projects over 50,000?
Move to approve?
Moved by Cortese, seconded by Doe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, motion passes unanimously. All right, y'all, we are in consent calendar.
Move to approve the consent calendar?
Okay, moved by
Second.
trustee Cortese,
Second.
seconded by trustee Lay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, motion passes unanimously. So that's 2021. Okay, do we have any? Okay, there are no written reports on the agenda. We're moving on to 22.
Under future agenda items,
Yes.
the two that are listed for me under Board Member J. Manuel Herrera, I would like them put on the agenda for the next meeting in November, just so I can explain what I mean with these, because I had an interaction with the superintendent and a brief exchange with Member Cortese, and it is not being correctly understood what it is that I'm seeking, and I at least want to explain it in public to the full board. And whether you take action on it or not, I'll have my opportunity to be a little bit more explicit.
Can you, what exactly are you referring to? What is, explain
here.
it?
Semi-annual staff survey under board maintaining timely awareness of program needs and quarterly report to the board out-of-pocket expenditures by staff. That phrasing is completely insufficient to understand what it is that I mean, and I want to talk about it.
Okay, we'll make
Not
a note.
asking for action.
We'll make a note of that. Okay,
So
great.
put it on the agenda, please.
Any other comment? Not
Yes.
comments, but a request for future
I'd like
board
to
items.
request to visit Faciliton
Andrew
process.
Lay.
and also online tutorial.
Faciliton and online tutorial. Okay.
I might as well add mine. I'd love to have more meetings where we are recognized.
Mm.
All of that. Have done some, make some progress in improving the city climate at number of our school. If we can, administration at the time is the right moment, maybe perhaps the next meeting, so at time, the right moment, an appropriate time to come back and give us a status report and see where we are.
Great. Thank you for that. Anything from you, Cortese? Since we're on a roll? Okay,
might as well.
nothing else from me.
A PS is that the reason why I'm pressing on my items is because it's been many months, almost a year since
Okay.
I raised them and I looked for an opportunity. And this agenda has always said that November of 2023. would be
Okay.
when we would like get to it.
Okay,
And then lately it added /December.
okay.
If I may,
Noted.
just go ahead, second that motion, that request, so that way we can
There-
have that discussion
no-
in the next meeting.
There's no need to second it. It's, you know,
like it.
it's part of this. So I'm hearing my colleague here. Thank you. Okay, that's item number 22. We're going on to 23 now. Comments. Where do we usually start? Who wants to start? Herrera, you want to start?
I have no comment. Thank you.
Okay, Cortez.
Just how exciting it is to hear from our schools, sites and how it's going and you know, how this data is being used to really make a difference for students is just very heartening.
Trustee Lake.
I want to say that I've been visiting school with Superintendent Glenn Vanderzee and learned quite a few things from teachers and staff. So I want to appreciate them. I want to send in thank you. And I kind of feel a little bit bad today after hearing. So that's what I want to say.
For hearing.
After the public hearing.
Oh,
tonight.
oh.
It's just so much things that I have in mind. So I don't feel good about it.
Thank you. No comment.
I just want to thank everybody for continuing to work hard. Yeah, October is one of the hardest months. And we've, when was Halloween? Tuesday? What day is it today? Today's Thursday, right? And so we're officially in November. So I'm just appreciating every single person in the system, right? For just continuing to just push through and not give up. And, you know, these conversations about data give me a lot of hope because it means that we're really thinking strategically and thoughtfully about how to support each other, how to support our students, what are the most impactful moves, and everybody's involved. And, you know, when everybody is involved, that just really speaks to the work at a different level. And, you know, one of the things that I'm also, you know, leaving with tonight is it's super simple. You know, Patty, you asked, is this data like redone every 6 months? I mean, every 6 weeks, like we start over. So like a fresh start, right? And hearing how our students have all the, you know, resources or increased, you know, support at different schools. I'm just leaving with our students aren't necessarily some of the mistakes that they do. They are the opportunities that they can have and that they're starting to have access to. So I'm leaving this space today with just tons of hope and tons of appreciation. And I hope everybody in the system knows the impact that you're making on our students and just so eternally grateful for that. Thank you. Our student representative is unfortunately not here, so we will move on from that. Superintendent Vanderzee, the floor is yours.
I'm going to thank the educational services team and the principals for the last 3 presentations that we had, but I also want to thank our entire learning community that structured itself and has prepared itself to be able to go through this data and do exactly what you said earlier. This isn't a data point anymore. This becomes a person. And then to be able to identify all the educators in our system that can then work and just do things unique for that student or for or students in need. And I just want to thank the entire East Side truly for allowing that to happen and then making sure it's happening and how quickly it has become from a tool to a way to see a person and respond differently is just incredible. So thanks to everybody for doing that. I also want to thank the team for getting students to San Jose State. We had over 300 students that went. And I got to tell you, there's not a lot of buses in the valley anymore. So I want to thank Sergio and Julie and Associate Superintendent Huntoon for like calling VTA and asking, can you change your route so that we can have more buses at this stop at this time? And it was truly a collective effort. And so thanks for that. I also want to thank the students at Silver Creek. I got invited to join the band last week at the football game and got to play the drums. And there were 5 students around me that made sure I would not be the child left behind, right? So they like got me ready for each song, taught me how to go. And so I want to thank those 5 for doing it. But what's kind of beautiful is I'm about to leave and I'm talking to the young man on drums and he's like, "What year are you? Senior?" I'm like, "You're wearing a football shirt." "Yeah, I got injured this year, so I couldn't play. And now I can't play sports wrestling." I'm like, So what are you doing next year? "I don't know." I said, "Have you heard the Spartan East Side Promise?" And the beautiful answer was, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Dude, you got to go for that. Hit it." So I want to thank our entire community that's managed to put that promise in front of people that students can tell some rando guy like me who's walking up and playing the drums, like, nobody knows what a superintendent is. Like, who is this person? Thanks for accepting me as I was positive, positively responded so I could fully participate in that event. But thanks to our entire community that if I ask a student now, "Do you know about the Spartan East Side Promise?" The answer is yes. And that's great. And not everyone's going to take advantage of that opportunity, but them knowing about it keeps it one. So thanks, everyone. It's appreciated.
You have one last thing?
Sure.
Just, one of the things I was reminding my colleagues is the training we all took with the Vanto group. If you remember the 3rd point of the 3 laws of performance, future-based language is transformative. And that's what that is. The East Side Promise is future-based language.
Thank you for that. Okay, we are now 24. Council, is there anything to report?
Yes, closed session item 2.03, expulsion 23-24-002. Motion by member Doe, second by member Lay. The board unanimously approved the stipulated agreement for expulsion. Closed session item 2.09 in the matter of the claim of Saman and Youssef as parents on behalf of student. The board motion after motion by member Cortese, second by President Chavez. The board unanimously approved a settlement agreement and general release, pursuant to which the district agrees to reimburse the parents for 4 years, for up to $200,000 in educational services for the student through 2026, 2027, with a mutual release of claims. There are no attorney's fees paid as a result of this agreement, and there are no further actions to report.
Okay, so I might need some counsel here. Thank you for that, counsel. We're gonna go back into closed session. And I know you just reported pretty much what's happened thus far. I don't know if I should have stopped you, so my apologies there. But what is protocol if we're gonna go back into closed session?
The board can recess into closed session, don't adjourn the meeting. And then if there are any further actions, the board will report them once it comes out of closed session. Otherwise, the board will come out to simply adjourn the meeting.
Yeah, and we
Great.
can explicitly say there will be no actions to report.
Yeah. So, yeah, there will be no actions to report, but we'll still come back and adjourn the meeting officially then. Okay.
And that's fine. You can recess now then.
Okay, so we're going to recess, is that, okay. We're recessing to closed session. Okay, so we have nothing to report out from closed session. It is 10:34. The meeting is adjourned.